Yeah, okay, yeah. Jesus went to church on Sunday. That is an assumption that a lot of people make. And the reason they make it is understandable. We're born into a ready-made world of religion, and we don't question what our parents taught us, what the generations, what's been handed down to us. We just don't question what we do, what we believe. Again, we are all born into a ready-made world of religion. So it may come as a shock to find out that Jesus kept the Sabbath. He was a Jew. He kept the seventh day of the week. He did not observe Sunday, the first work day of the week, as a holy day or a day of worship or anything like that. Jesus worked on the first work day of the week, which is Sunday. So, okay, why is it important? Okay, well, all right, that's a good question. You know, does it matter? What's the difference? Whether you're going to church on Sunday or whether you're going to church on Saturday, what difference does it make? Well, the difference that it makes is in understanding what the day was created for. When you look at the Sabbath command, the fourth commandment, there's not a word in there about worship. There's not a word in there about let's go to church, let's praise Jesus, let's hold our hands up and have a worship service. Nothing in there about that. In fact, the first commanded congregation comes 2,000 years later, after Adam and Eve were created. The first commanded worship service comes 2,000 years later in the book of Exodus, and it's actually one of God's holy days. It's the first day, first day of unleavened bread, where you had to have a commanded assembling of people together. So people find that, you know, strange that, okay, 2,000 years goes by before you have this first commanded worship service. But the Sabbath is not about, I mean, there's nothing wrong with worship, but that's not the focus of the Sabbath day. What the Sabbath commandment says is to rest. Stop your work. Don't do any work on this day. So what it is, it's a day of disconnect. You stop doing, it's a day, listen, it's a day of no responsibilities. Imagine that. We live in such a stressful society. And the Sabbath is a day where, like an overloaded receptacle, where you've got too much plugged into your life, you disconnect, you unplug everything. And a day, listen closely, a day of no responsibilities. Wow. You know, you want to lower your blood pressure? This is one of the ways you do it. You know, a Sabbath. And I pity people who work 7 days a week and have no Sabbath. So we got to understand that this issue of Sabbath keeping goes beyond anything. It's beyond worship. It has to do with health, mental, emotional health, the ability to cope with stress, cope with your busy life, and the way you connect with God. The Sabbath is a day of connectivity. The way you do that is you stop. You stop. That's how you keep the Sabbath. And our society has failed to do this. You know, we think a 45-minute worship service where we're busily, you know, worshiping whatever is all God wants. No, that will not make your life work. If you want to make your life work, you need to appreciate and enjoy the full meaning of God's Sabbath day. A stress-free day, a day of no responsibility. Hey, if you don't want to get up, you want to stay in the bed and rest all day, that's fine. You know, a day of no response. I cannot overemphasize that. A day of no responsibility and what that will do for you when it comes to your health, when it comes to your emotional health, when it comes to your mental health. Oh, it's critical. It's absolutely critical. Yeah, I mean, people do this all the time. They try to justify Sunday observance from the pages of the Bible. And it's totally unnecessary. I mean, first of all, you can't do it. It's the most obvious reason you shouldn't try to do it. But it's far better just to acknowledge the truth, and that is Jesus was a Jew. Jesus observed his Father's commandments. He observed the fourth commandment. He kept the Sabbath day. You find the early New Testament church keeping the Sabbath day. You see the Apostle Paul keeping the Sabbath day. That the people would, bid him, okay, the next Sabbath they came together. Paul came to preach to them the next Sabbath day. So what is interesting is in the book of Acts, you have the Jerusalem Council, where they were agonizing over, whether you had to be circumcised or not in order to be saved. Salvation by works of the law. And they had to straighten that mess out, But at that Jerusalem Council, there is no, now get this, there is no mention of a new day of worship. Not a word about it. Now, if there had been a change in the day of worship from Sabbath to Sunday, I mean, think about it. For 4,000 years, we've kept the Sabbath day. If there had been a change, that's all the Jerusalem Council would have been about. We've got a new day of worship. Jesus rose from the dead, and now we're worshiping on the first work day of the week instead of the Sabbath. That's all that Jerusalem Council would have been about. But there's not a word mentioned at the Jerusalem Council about a new day of worship. Now, what does that tell you? Well, that tells you no new day of worship existed. Not back then, not now.
Is that really in the Bible? What you think is in the Bible is not.